Welcome to the podcast, everybody. I'm Coach Tyler, here as always with Dr. Lisa.
Hey, hey.
Hey, Dr. Lisa. Today's going to be a fun episode, okay? Because we get to do another you and me conversation, which is so fun. Like I said, we have a lot to say about things in the fitness industry, health and wellness and whatnot. But today, I wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit because I think that the listeners, they listen to us, our perspectives and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And one of the most kind of harmful things I think that people can do is make the assumption that the people that they're listening to just kind of got it all figured out, right? And I don't know about you, but I feel like I know less today than I knew every year in the past.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so I think it'd be fun for us to both kind of start sharing our own journeys, right? Mm-hmm. Where did we start? How did we get to here? And how did we, get to working with WeShape and trying to really spread this new way of doing fitness, this new way of, taking care of ourselves? So maybe I start by grilling you for a few minutes, and then you could grill me a little bit here. So yeah, I don't know if you want to start with just kind of like your journey a little bit, like where you got started and kind of how you got to this place that you're in now, and then how you came to find us and start working together with WeShape.
Yeah, it's a good story. It's a long story, but I'll give you all the short version. So I was very, typically trained as a physical therapist, originally from Detroit. I'm wearing my Detroit shirt today for those watching. Born and raised, and I just knew I wanted a career helping people, and healthcare was sort of where I was leaning. And when I was 16, I decided on physical therapy. And so I went to Grand Valley State University, and I did my bachelor's, my doctorate, and I was a very type A, organized, color-coded, alphabetized kind of girl, and kind of like planned my whole life. I think the first day of freshman orientation in college, I planned out my entire 4 years. So I knew what classes I would be taking from all the way to the start, from the start to the finish. And that was basically very representative of the personality I had as it related to life, and definitely as it related to fitness. So
I'll pause you there, though. You just jumped into becoming a young adult.
Yeah.
Like, what made you that young adult? Let's go back a little further. Like, why did you care about health and fitness?
Beginning. Okay.
Why did you care about health and fitness?
Yeah.
And what was that drove you to have so much perfection?
Yeah, so I grew up, I was the oldest of 6 to a single mom.
There's that perfection, that parentified, right?
Parentified child.
Yeah.
And my dad passed away when I was 16, but prior to that, he was a fitness person. He was actually Mr. Michigan in 1989 for the lightweight division. So he was into bodybuilding and fitness competition and aesthetics. And I very much looked up to that. And so I knew I wanted a career that was sort of in the health and fitness world. I was a dancer and a cross-country runner. And so, but I had already started to pick up, disordered habits as far as not liking my body. I think the earliest I had a negative feeling about my body was around the age of 7. And it just got, and it just got amplified as you get to high school and get older and start comparing, body checking. So I definitely had those struggles. Didn't realize they were struggles. I thought that was just normal, right?
Everybody does this.
Nobody likes their bodies, right?
Yeah.
And so I went through physical therapy school, undergrad and then physical therapy school, and I was just very classically trained. I looked at body weight as, problematic and something to be controlled. I believed in control. That was the essence of my life. And it got me far as achievements and scholarships and awards. But it did become an issue as I got older. I think for me, shit hit the fan primarily after having kids, because that's when I felt like I really started to lose control of my body and not be able to keep it a certain size. And then in my professional work, mirroring that same attitude of everything being about your body. I wasn't even focused in on health. It was really aesthetics, and I just didn't know it, So I was very much into diet culture.
It's like how lean you were was how healthy you were.
Healthy you were.
Didn't matter anything
Period.
else. Yeah.
And the funny thing is I didn't even have a frame of reference because I had never experienced any changes in my health. Everything was always pretty good,
Yeah.
But if my body would change, I would make the assumption like, oh, my health must be worsening. So I did that. I did every diet, Atkins, Mediterranean, Weight Watcher, anything you could think of, I did it. Fasting, all of the things. And I just remember hitting a wall after my third child was born and realizing like something is not right. And then I stumbled upon a book by Dr. Lindo Bacon called Health at Every Size. And that started me down the rabbit hole. And then I started reading all the books and I started to adopt a lifestyle rooted in health at every size, rooted in weight acceptance, body acceptance. I learned about disordered eating and movement habits and recognized like, you know, I had been engaging in them for years. And I shifted the entire way that I live my life and the entire way that I ran my private practice as a physical therapist. And so my niche then became working with people in eating disorder recovery and focusing on people in larger bodies. And so that's what I do. And I started putting out content to reflect that. And I grew and developed in that area. I feel like I got another degree in, you know, weight acceptance and body neutrality and anti-diet. And WeShape found me, which was like so exciting because, I mean, people reach out to me all the time for podcasts or this or that. But there was just something, I don't know, something really like warm about the invite. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do a podcast. And so that was exciting. That was, I don't know, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. I don't even know anymore when the date was. But I remember doing the podcast and just feeling like everybody here has like a really warm energy. And when you all reached back out to me, I think to do like a coaching call or a series with the community, I was like, oh, when you grow up like kind of with that imposter syndrome, like, you know, you work hard, you know, you're capable, you're smart, but then you like question and doubt yourself all the time. It's like so affirming for someone to be like, we like you and you had great insight and now we want you to work with us again. And I was like, okay. And so every time that I interacted with the team here at WeShape, it was just very obvious that this was like where I was supposed to be connected. And so that started it. And then I think I was asked to do like a guest podcast. And the next thing you know, will you be our co-host? And I was like, yeah,
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, I just feel like everything happens for a reason. I don't believe in coincidences or mistakes. Like everything I learned, everything I thought about, everything I posted, every which way we interacted on social media, like all of it was, you know, very much, you know, supposed to happen. And so, you know, now being on one of the coaches along with you, doing the podcast, you know, I just feel, you know, like a sense of belonging. This work can be very lonely when you're not following the trends. And so just in my private practice, it's just me. In my social media, it's just me. So it's really nice to establish more community and have sort of a home and a family and a team of people rooting for you, working with you, and you all have the same goal in mind. So that's kind of how I got here to WeShape.
Well, I got to say, it's rare. I think that you don't know how rare you are. And I'll just be real with you. Like, we have, you know, I've been in the fitness industry for a long time, met a lot of people. And, you know, you meet people who maybe they understand movement a little bit more or whatever, but maybe they're completely numb emotionally and they have no idea what's going through someone's experience. For you to have the breadth of experience of, you know, being a woman in the world who had the experience that most women have, succeeding at it. That's a piece that I think is really interesting, because when you don't succeed at it, you don't really have this concrete proof that it doesn't make you happy. But when you do and you're miserable, you are sure that this is not the route towards happiness, you know? And so to have that understanding about the mindset side of things that we talk about at WeShape, which is just so much rooted in, you know, self-love, self-compassion, and that journey that it takes to get there. And at the same time, having the depth of understanding around how the body works and aligning yourself around that, right? It's not about energy expenditure and intensity. It's about moving well. It's about caring for yourself. It's about connecting with your body. And then also the final piece, I think, is being able to articulate that in a way that's easy to understand and entertaining to listen to as well. It's so important. So I'm gonna grill you on this story a little bit, right? Because you know, I heard you say at 7, you started having this body image issues, and I'm curious, you know, having a dad who is a professional bodybuilder,
right?
How did that impact that relationship with your body?
You know, it was tough because, you know, my dad, this is the 80s and 90s, right? And so it's not like my dad had, I don't think he even recognized it. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't recognize, like, My daughter dislikes her body. It's not something that I necessarily vocalized. But because of the industry that he was in, all I saw was people manipulating their bodies. That's it.
Yeah.
So it was literally normal. And so even if I had said out loud, like, oh, I would like my stomach to be flatter, I don't think it would have been a red flag for anyone. Like nowadays, if my child said that, I'm like, no, what do you mean?
Yeah.
That's not,
Where'd you get that from? Yeah.
All of it. I have tons of questions, but I don't think it would have rang any alarms back then because it was just the norm. My dad would compete, and when he was competing, he would eat baby food. He would be fasting. He would be at the gym he worked at the gym. That was his actual job. He was the district manager for the Powerhouse Gym in Detroit. And so he would just be there all day, and he'd be working out off and on all day. And then when he was done competing, he'd go back to eating whole pizzas. You know what I mean? So I saw the binge and restriction cycle, and it was just normal. So I had no frame of reference from which to question it. So I would just say that growing up seeing that, it just played into my dissatisfaction of my body even more. It just made sense. It's like, why would I be satisfied with my body? No one else is.
Yeah. It's so funny how we normalize that.
Yeah, it was very normalized.
It's so normalized because it's true that most people aren't satisfied with their body. Nope. But we need more and more people to show up and shine that light brighter and say, you know what, I accept myself as I am.
As I am.
So that we can start to teach others to accept themselves as
Absolutely.
they are. That's such a big deal. I know you've been on a hell of a growth journey the last few years in particular.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'm curious, what have you learned along the way? What have you learned that took you from someone who's this type A to feeling like, oh God, I'm overwhelmed, like I can't do this anymore, to like, wait a second, this isn't the right path, to like, let me go down this other path and face the demons that it takes to go down this path.
Yeah. I feel like, again, I don't believe in coincidences, and I feel like sometimes connecting with certain people is very instrumental in sort of taking me on my own journeys. And so the journey of like body acceptance, that's ongoing, and that has manifested in many different ways in my life. But what I lean back to is the things that I thought were like serving me, my control. We talked about it on another episode where like controlling is really just you showing that you don't trust in this process or this person or yourself or whatever. And I'm getting to a point now where I'm starting to embrace trust, and I'm letting go of control. And the control piece for me was wrapped up in every area of my life. And I've talked about this maybe once on the podcast, and I know I recently sent out an email to my community around this, but I am navigating a divorce, and that was one of the biggest steps I've taken over the last few years, because what I learned through that process is to center myself again. When you grow up like I was super religious, but by choice, to be very clear. My family never put that on me. It was something else I sought for, structure, control,
structure, comfort,
comfort, protection. And when you grow up in a very, very conservative religious sort of setting, the concept of marriage is like mandatory, especially for women. Yeah. And it is considered so sacred that you don't leave it.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Yeah.
And that is how I looked at my marriage. I was married for 17 years, and I just believed that no matter what, you stay. And I had when I say it now, it's like cringy, but my thought process for the first 13 years of my marriage was, if I'm not getting physically assaulted or cheated on consistently or multiple times, then I should just stay. That is literally how low the bar was. Yeah. And my religious upbringing kind of supported that. And that was probably the last. I talk about like my divorcing diet culture as one step in my journey, but divorcing my husband as like another huge step in like seeking and finally finding some freedom and some peace, and recognizing like you don't have to torture yourself. It's the same thing with exercise. I don't have to punish myself with movement and exercise. I don't have to punish myself to stay in relationship with another person. I can care for and love myself and find ways to take care of me. And it's not, everybody doesn't have to get a divorce. But for me, when I saw that things were not going to change and I wasn't going to have a loving and fulfilling relationship that I truly came to believe and understand that I deserved, I had to make the decision to walk away. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, because I just didn't believe in that. I just didn't. I was the type of person that would say, I don't believe in divorce. I don't believe in divorce. And so that has been even more impactful in my journey toward freedom, self-love, self-acceptance, even more so than just, getting rid of these rules and this rigidity around diet and movement and all of that. But it's all been, I can see the links, the similarities, and how they're all a part of like just my development and my growth as a human, and getting wiser, and then recognizing there's so much I still don't know, but being very open to learning and excited for the future. So I have never felt lighter, to be honest.
I love that. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I have a little darker of a question. Do have you connected with a sense of like where that compulsion to be unkind to yourself came from? I know the society is a wrapper around that, but do you have anything that you've connected with in your own personal experience that really fortified that? Because we talk a lot about how so much of this happens in that early childhood phase, and then we just stay within that paradigm. Yeah,
I think a lot of the darkness, that desire to be unkind to myself, it was rooted in what I thought was self-love. Yeah. I think I was one of the people who adopted that idea of tough love. Yeah. It's like you're not going to be a better person by being soft and being slacking on yourself. I'm going to be the best, and I'm going to push myself, and I'm going to point out my flaws and my insecurities and my issues, and I'm going to harp on them, and I'm going to make myself fix them. And so there was like a desire to excel that prompted me to be very mean to myself in that pursuit. And it's ugly now. Like, I wouldn't do that now, and I don't want my kids doing that, but that was a part of the fuel. So a lot of my fuel toward trying to be great was around fear and not liking myself, and just believing that the harder I was on myself, the farther I would go in life.
Yeah. I think that this is a theory that I have is, behind all of our neuroses is some sense of like heartbreak of not feeling seen and loved and respected as a child.
Absolutely. And
so
just not being able to be a child.
Yeah. I know that's another thing that, is your experience. And I know that my partner, Katie, shares that experience. And it's always hard for me to listen to some of these stories about why you never got to be a kid. Like, that's so wild. But thank you so much for sharing that journey with us. If somebody's in the middle of that journey right now, and maybe they're questioning their belief system around how they should show up for themselves. Maybe they're questioning their relationships, right? Like, what advice do you give those people?
I think it's the same advice we share with people when they're walking away from the rigidity and the structure around fitness and movement and all that, is to tune into yourself. You got to get back to you. Yeah. I think everything we go through in our lives, the goal is to bring us closer to ourselves, but we get so much further away from ourselves the older we get. And so I really think it's about tuning into you. And, your story won't be exactly like mine or your sister's or your friends or whomever's, but you have to get real honest and real curious about what it is you want, what it is you need, and have a knowing and understanding of what you deserve. Yeah. And sometimes that's going to require really, really tough decisions to be made, really, really difficult conversations to be had. It's going to require some boundaries to be set with others, with yourself, and it's going to be an ongoing journey. It doesn't just, you wake up one morning, okay, I know what I want, and I fix it, and it's done. Like, this is ongoing. The longer, the more you live, the more you'll have to kind of untangle and figure out, but it's really worth it, because like I said, I know this isn't the end of my story. I know I still have stuff to figure out, but I've never felt lighter. I've never felt more aligned with who I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm able to be more present now and enjoy the moments, as opposed to like getting to the next thing, or what we talked about before, like when I get this, I'll be this. And it's like, nope, I'm happy now. I'm content now. I feel good now. Do I still have more to learn and grow and more to do and experience? For sure. But I just feel like I've made decisions that weren't popular, but definitely served me and my children and my future really well. So
yeah, that's tough. I mean, sometimes life is not easy. I think that's what's fun about this episode is like, as you express this raw, vulnerable side of yourself and the experiences you've had, like, I'm just really connecting with the truth that, everybody's life is challenging at points. Yeah. And yet I heard you say something that I firmly believe too, which is like, as we come home to ourselves more, as we connect more with like that truest version of ourselves, we have to make difficult decisions. We have to have hard conversations. And at least in my experience, it's the people around you that are willing to have those conversations and move through them that are the people that need to stay there.
Yeah.
And it's the people around you that when you try to have those conversations can't have it with you. That's just ultimately someone who's saying, I cannot grow that way with you.
Yeah,
I'm not, that's not
absolutely.
my job here. That's not my purpose in this life. And at that point, you have a choice. You can either stop your own growth, which is just stopping connecting with yourself.
Bad choice.
Yeah. Or you can keep going and say, I love you, and I respect you, and this is your journey, and this is mine, and you can
Exactly.
go the separate ways.
I wish
So,
you well.
yeah, it's a really tough decision to make.
It's
I'm sure.
tough, but it's so worth it on the other side of it. And I'm not even fully on the other side, but it's worth it, and I can feel it. So I feel really good about that.
We're never fully on the other side, right? There's always some new hurdle in front of us that's going to throw us for a loop and challenge our sense of self.
Yeah, but you're not going to get out of this. So moving on to you.
Let's do it. Let's flip the script. I'm all for it.
It's your turn. So I know, obviously, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners do, that you had a very different business before WeShape.
Yeah.
And I know you definitely have your own journey with, body acceptance and just accepting yourself as a human.
Yeah.
But I would love to hear, just a synopsis of what that has looked like for you, and then where you are today with WeShape and the direction, that you have taken this company and all the lives that it's impacting and changing. I want to hear how you feel about that, especially because I don't think you spend enough time sort of appreciating what you and Katie, and the whole team have brought to the world through this venue. So, your turn. Take it away.
I definitely, in my own time, I spend enough time appreciating. It's why I show up every day. But, if I were just to rewind quite a ways back, I have a different story than you. I grew up in a family that kind of took their mainstream advice from, like the commercials and things like that. We had diet sodas, and they did every diet and Weight Watchers and everything. And they really struggled. My parents really struggled. And, as time went on, I watched their health decline. And when you watch that as a kid, it's really easy to develop a compulsion to not want to be like that.
For sure.
And that's where kind of my journey started, was this moment, especially, I think I was in my teenage years, and I wasn't treating my body kindly. I was just going off of the examples I had. And I had this moment of realizing, wait, I get to choose who I want to be. I don't have to just show up and be like my parents.
Right.
And while that sounds like a healthy, epiphany to have, mine was I will do everything the opposite, and I will do it better than they ever could, and this kind of thing, right? So, in a similar way, like you, I really overachieved in that area, right? It was let me try the workouts, and let me, do these different diet routines, and let me put all of my self-worth in what I'm able to do, and how my body's going to look, and what I'm able to produce. And one detour in that journey that was really helpful was that I got hit by a car when I was getting started on this journey. I was a few years into the journey, got hit by a car, and trashed my left knee, okay? And I'll never forget going back into the gym, right? Because, you go to the gym and you do the typical routines like the leg extensions and the leg press and, just trying to build muscle and whatnot. And I sat down on a leg extension machine for the first time after that injury. And I went to do a leg extension, and the eccentric phase, the downward phase of that motion was clack, 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 clack. It was just my muscle did not know what to do, and it hurt so bad. And I'm sitting there, and I'm 17, and I'm I can't do this, right? I can't do this. And so it gave me this moment of recognition that I need to figure out how to change this, because immediately this is more important than what I look like.
Right.
So in a lot of ways, that incident was a stroke of luck for me. It was this moment of going I want to be jacked. Yeah, I want to have a six pack. But more importantly, I don't want my knee to not function,
Part,
Exactly. And so that led me down a path. I got kind of lucky on a second term, as I got hit by a car. So I got a settlement from this lady, and I spent that money traveling around the country, learning from some amazing experts, buying books and equipment equipment to just doing everything I possibly could to figure out how to fix that problem, right?
I knew that.
Yeah, so it was really fun. It was really cool to be in that experience. Of course, I blew it all, which was stupid.
Well, you were 17.
Learned a lesson. Yeah, I learned a lesson real hard over those couple of years in that respect. But
to be clear, you were hit as a pedestrian?
I was riding a bike.
Okay.
Yeah, I was riding a bicycle, and it was an SUV. Boom, from the side, and cracked my femur, and I couldn't walk because it tore the cartilage for a few months there, right? So, so I mean, luckily I was able to take that knowledge and fix that problem, and that's where that passion of I'd rather focus on performance and what I can do than how I look came from, right? And I'm really happy to say that the aesthetics, even though it was still a part of what I wanted in my awareness, it wasn't the thing I was doing it for. I was doing it for performance, but that can equally be toxic. And so that's the other avenue I went down for a little while.
Soup.
It was performance now, right? So it was like, how much can I lift and how much gymnastics can I do and how much, and it was just more and more and more and more of that.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for a lot of those experiences that I had, but lo and behold, decade later, I am doing gymnastics and I come down and I'm doing this twisting move and I punch and my knee caves sideways. And it's one of those moments where, you know, your ego's like, that didn't hurt, you know, like that's, I'll be okay. But deep down inside, you're like, ooh, that one's gonna sting. You know, it's like I heard pop, pop, pop inside the knee joint. I wobbled off, and when I was wobbling off, I could feel my lower leg clunking back and forth under my leg, and I was like, oh. And of course, you know, being an idiot, I was just like, you know, it's cool. I'll walk it off. And I came home that night, and I'll never forget this because I was just like in this space. You know, you're in shock. You're just like, what's happening? I went home. My wife, Katie, was still at work, and she wasn't going to come home for a couple more hours. And I opened the front door, and my dogs run out the front door. And this one dog is like he was so fast and he was so hard to catch. So I'm like wobbling after him. I'm feeling my lower leg clunk, 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 clunk underneath my upper leg, right? It was a horrible feeling. And I catch the other one, right? I put him back inside and I come out and the neighbor has a dog walking by and my dog runs up to him and I'm just like tears and I'm just discombobulated. Can you please grab my dog? You know? And they're like, what is happening with you? And I'm like, thank you so much. I hurt my knee. I need to go. And I went inside the house and I called Katie and I was like, I fucked up. This is bad, right? And she's like, I'll tell my dad to come get you. And of course I went and got an MRI and I tore my ACL, MCL, LCL, quad, and meniscus all in one shot. And I was trying to walk it off, right? So this is the ego and the arrogance of men, right? When we try to walk off injuries like that. And, you know, to be totally honest, that first injury was really humbling, partly because I was really young and it was like, it just gave me instantly this experience of what it's like to not feel like you have this body that's invincible. But that second injury, I mean, my God, I have been on a journey with that one for, you know, it was 13 or more years now. Jeez. And so, you know, I can always lose count now. I think it's 4 surgeries on that knee. I've blown through 3 ACLs now on that side, partly due to the first surgery being one where they didn't put the ligaments back properly. But that experience really fortified that experience of not just performance. It took away that desire to be like, I want to be like the strongest and the best. And it was like, I want to be 100 years old and still be able to move. And like, that is the North Star. The North Star is, can I be flexible? Can I be strong? But not to gratify my ego, but to know that I can like do this for as long as possible. And so, you know, in a lot of ways, I look at these 2 instances and I think, you know, wow, I could think, woe is me. But like those instances, they shaped me when it comes to my philosophy more than anything else. And, you know, to anybody out there who is struggling with how your body feels right now, like when you're walking, when you're standing, when you're sitting, when you're moving, like one of the things that was really helpful to me was just reframing it. Say, I got a guru that's living inside of me right now. And when I don't move well, when I don't take care of myself, that guru lets me know immediately. Oh, you're not moving your knee well, you're overusing your hip, right? You know, whatever it may be. And if you can get connected with that, then you can use that feedback loop to go, you know, I need a little bit more, you know, self-massage right now. I need a little more stretching right now. I need a little more strength training right now, a little more rest, whatever it is. And so that helped me really connect with my body in a really meaningful way. So, yeah, I mean, that's the physical journey. I think in a lot of ways, what I do for myself hasn't changed much since then. It's just like, what do I need to do to stay strong and flexible and maintain good balance and coordination? But this is where the WeShape journey starts, right? Because along that path, you know, I really decided that I wanted to make fitness my career. I'm not someone who was good at school. Okay, so I wanted to get out of school as quickly as possible, and I went and tried to be a rock musician for a little while. So I had a fun time doing that career.
They are learning so much about
I know,
you,
right?
and I love it. Go ahead.
But when I realized that wasn't going to happen, I realized I had this other passion, right? I had this other passion of fitness, and so I said, I'm going to go be a trainer. I'm going to learn how to be a personal trainer and help people out. And I had already put a lot of effort into learning this stuff prior to actually taking on a job as a trainer. And that's when I walked into the gym and just was like, nobody here understands like movement. They're not thinking about, how do we teach people how to do things well and properly? And that was a moment I realized, and this isn't every trainer, but it's a lot of them. It's like most trainers are ex-fit people or ex-athletes, right? That typically don't have a lot of aches, pains, and injuries. And so their perception of how someone else feels in their body is pretty skewed, right?
Absolutely.
When you have chronic pain because of a worn down joint, you can have empathy and understanding for someone who has chronic pain in a worn down joint.
Yeah, and the tools to modify
and the
their
tools
movements.
to do it. Yeah, because you've had to do it, right?
Yeah.
But when someone doesn't understand that, when their knees feel good, when their back feels good, maybe they had like a little bump here and there or whatever, but they don't have something that's really plagued them. It's like you're never going to be able to train someone in a way that has enough understanding and compassion and also maybe technique to be able to help them get through that and get out the other side, right? Because to me, what I found was like the smallest details make the biggest difference, right? If I'm doing something and I'm doing something just a little bit wrong here, like I can feel my foot and maybe the weight's a little bit more to the outside than the inside, ouch, that hurts, right? Versus someone with a healthy knee joint, like you can get away with it until you can't. Until you can't, right? Which will happen eventually.
Comes back for all of us.
Yeah. So, long story short on this business journey is I decided to make that my career. And the first thing I said to myself was I want to make an impact on people in a really meaningful way.
Yeah.
And so I got lucky. I found some mentors who were teaching people how to do personal training careers and whatnot. And the best advice they gave me was don't be like other personal trainers where they're just like, come in, come out on session. Have somebody sign up with you for a period of time and just be confident enough to sell that, right? And so I did. And I would have people sign up for like 6-month programs. I said, I want you to work with me a minimum of 2 days a week for 6 months, right? So it was expensive for them, but it gave me the opportunity to actually work with someone long enough to make a meaningful shift, right? And so that was the first part of my career, was working with people in a really intimate fashion, right? And I would do anything I could to help that person succeed, even if it meant going to their house and helping them with their cabinets and their food and things like that, right? Now that was rooted in toxic dieting and whatnot at the time. But yeah, I was just trying to help people succeed.
Yeah, for sure.
And at some point, I decided to start a group training program. I had a lot of fun with that because it was cool to coach a lot of different people at the same time. And that's when this concept of scalability really entered my mind, right? Because when you're working with somebody one-on-one, you are scaling things up and down. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I say scaling. It's like, if you want somebody to do a squat movement, right? We can do a squat to a chair. We call that a sit to stand, right? If that's too hard, maybe we put the box up higher or some pillows on the chair. We reduce the range of motion. If that's too hard, we work on just muscle activation, weight distribution on the feet, right? Making sure the knees are in good alignment, teaching people how to activate the core, keep the spine neutral, right? And if it's too easy, then we can scale the opposite direction and make things a little bit harder.
Right.
But when you're training one person, it's easy. You got your eyes on that person, right? You're like, here's where I'm gonna go. Scale up, scale down. It's pretty easy. Put your hand on them. They can all this stuff. When you got 20 people, now all of a sudden you've got to be able to teach this to 20 people. And that's the thing that I hated about traditional fitness classes is it's like it's one person modeling one thing. Sometimes there's a little bit of a scaling variation, but did that person have enough scaling where everyone who came to that class felt like they were seen?
Felt like
right?
they were seen.
They felt like they were seen. And so I really worked hard on understanding, like, how do I take movements and break them down into simple all the way to complex, and not just beginner, intermediate, advanced, but 10, 20, 30, however many steps it needs to be in order to get somebody from point A to point Z.
And you did that. You did that.
I did do that. Yeah, I did that in that training program. And, it was great. And so here's where it gets interesting. All right. I had a business partner and things you could just tell it wasn't going to work out. Right. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take this group training program and I'm going to sell it to the business partner and I'm going to go online. I want to make this message bigger. And so when I first went online, it was about 11 years ago. I had these intentions of taking that philosophy and that concept online. But man, I was like, how the hell do I do this? I got no team. I got nothing, right? And so I did my best. I made my own PDFs and sold them, and I shot videos on my flip video camera and edited them and stuff like that, right? And it started off on a good foot for the most part. But then as I started to grow and expand that, I got connected with some success people in the fitness industry. And I was like, oh, look, these guys have, nice cars and nice houses, and they're making piles of money. And I was like, tell me more, because this is what I'm supposed to do as a man. I'm supposed to provide. Little did I know that providing means providing emotionally, providing with integrity, right? Providing that safety, right? Not just physical and financial is the way that I think a lot of men think about it.
For sure.
And so I went down that pathway. I really did. And I am, in some ways, I feel it's not regretful. I'm grateful for the experiences because it's made me who I am today. But I certainly see that this is a tantalizing path for a lot of people, men and women. I think more so men, especially young men, is like sacrifice your integrity, sacrifice what you really want to do because there's more money at the end of the road. Right. And so while over the subsequent decade of being online, while I still feel like we made great products, and I feel like we sold great products to people, and we helped a lot of people, and still underneath everything was my philosophy of movement, the way we sold them was very much aligned with the way you see the fitness industry selling things, right? It's lose belly fat in this amount of time, slim your waistline, and this blah, 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 blah. It was using shame, fear, teaching people self-judgment, teaching people criticism, and just leveraging that, right? And along the way, I ultimately realized, man, the only reason I'm succeeding at this is because I hated myself enough. I shamed myself enough to be that type A personality, to be disciplined with the diet, to do the workouts at the intensity required, right? All this stuff that just really didn't end up serving my sense of self and happiness, right? And there was this point where we were like really successful, right? We were selling keto cookbooks, and we were selling ab courses and all these different things. And, at the time, our company made the Inc. 500 list 3 years in a row, the 500 fastest growing companies in the United States, right? And I'll never forget, my wife and partner kind of looked at me and was like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing this for? Because she knew it. She knew that we were like leveraging people's fears to get them to sign up for these things. And I didn't. I just saw the opportunity. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna succeed.
They seem happy. You're making money. We're good.
We're gonna succeed, right? People are losing weight. It's great, But I really have her to thank for the shift there, because she was like, I don't want to do this. And I had this moment. Actually, I'll never forget the moment specifically. I had this goal of buying this particular car. And I bought this particular car. It's 2017. And I drove it back from San Jose. It was about 30 minutes away from here. And I pulled up in my driveway. And at first when I was driving, I was like, oh, I did it. I did it. And I landed in the driveway, and I was like, still empty. I could just feel the emptiness inside. And you know what? I still went down that path for another year and a half after that before I really understood how to. Right? It takes time. It takes time. But there was a point where I finally gave myself permission to ask myself this question: if I could build something, and I got nothing from it, no notoriety, no money, no praise, no recognition, nothing, what would I want to build? And it was this really cool experience, because you know what I did? I got in touch with the guy who first started trying to be online. And it was like, I want to go back to the way that I felt when I was working with people, one-on-one, trying to help them connect with their bodies, learn how to move their bodies, right? And then it was now coupled with a greater sense of awareness around how we were getting people into that. And so, over the course of a year or so, Katie and I were basically planning out how to build WeShape. And I was the one who coming up behind the scenes of saying, how do we build a technology that makes this really scalable? Again, with this idea of when you work with a personal trainer, they're able to see you, right? And how do we make it not just a workout program online, not just another fitness app that just has workouts that you can go do, right? How do we make sure that we see you, that we show up in a way that your body actually needs to help you feel better? And then Katie, along that way, had her own journey where she was like, I am so sick of the fitness industry teaching us to hate ourselves. And that one, I'm going to be honest, that pill took me another year or so to swallow. I didn't understand it at first. At first, you know what I heard? Men are evil. That's all I heard at first, right? And then I was like, wait a second. Okay, no, this isn't her getting mad at me, right? And ultimately, underneath that resistance was my own shame, right? It was my own shame of recognizing that, wait a second, I contributed to this problem. I contributed to this problem in a big way, right? And then also having daughters on top of it. And when you have this moment, when you have these little girls and you have this awareness that, wait a second, this industry teaches people to hate themselves, right? Teaches people to hate themselves. Do I want to be that person? No, I didn't want to be that person. And when you know better, you do better, right? And so a huge part of the evolution of WeShape over the last few years wasn't just asking, how do we see people more and meet people more when it comes to movement education and really creating something that's unique in its ability to offer a really personalized program for people, but also how do we make sure our brand is firmly hung on the integrity that we want people to show up out of self-love and self-appreciation and self-acceptance and self-care, not self-judgment, self-criticism, and that unkindness that the fitness industry teaches us. So that's why we're here today.
It's a beautiful story, and I'm grateful for that journey because that's why I'm here today. It's like all of these things work together for a deeper purpose. I do have one follow-up. When you made the shift, I know Katie obviously can take a lot of credit for opening your eyes to some things, but when you decided within yourself, like, oh yeah, this is the route we need to be going, was it like tempting to fall back into the old ways? I know we've talked about, it's a lot easier to sell fear and shame and, weight loss to people. So was it tempting to kind of fall back? Were you still sort of engaging with people that were in that side of the business and the world? Was that really hard for you? How did that all play out for you?
Great question. Yeah, fantastic question. That's a loaded question. I couldn't hear her perspective if I wasn't willing to do my own work.
Right.
And so I think that I credit her 100% in bringing this to my awareness. And then I credit myself 100% in being able to accept that as the truth. Right. And that only came from recognizing my own lack of self-worth and how that fueled the desire to succeed, even if it meant sacrificing integrity, right? And so it's this moment of going, I'm constantly striving to get that place and get that feeling of wholeness, to fill the hole, fill the void inside. And I couldn't see the perspective of this is something that's not good until I realized, wait a second, pursuing this is not good, right? And also just this moment, that moment of like, I'm still empty. Nothing will ever fill this void. Nothing will ever fill this void. And you're right that some of the people that I knew in the past kept going. And they went on to build some of the most prolifically known fitness companies out there. And I'm not going to say their names because, I want everything to unfold as it is, but it's mind-bending to me how the industry is still very much rooted in self-hatred, self-shame, self-judgment, and how society just like accepts that. Right? And I think that there is a shift. I think society is shifting over time. And I think that as that shifts, the people who operate in their integrity will be here. And the people who don't, won't, right? I think that over time, what becomes more available? Information, and usually is accompanied with truth, right?
Absolutely.
And the more we spread the truth, which to me, if your message is rooted in fear, it's not the truth. If your message is rooted in love, it's probably the truth, right? There's a little simple test that people can use, right? But yeah, it was hard. It was really damn hard. And, to be honest, it's hard as someone who got used to just winning when he was running these companies, to going, now I've got to put myself in this position of doing it this way. And, you asked me, was it tempting to slip back? It's like you hear the voice, but it never felt tempting, right? Because at some point I had to realize that what makes me feel whole is connecting with myself and helping others do the same.
Yeah.
And if at any part I slip backwards into telling people that you should do this way so that you can feel this way, right? That I wouldn't feel in my integrity anymore.
Yeah.
You know? And so it was a journey. It was a journey of recapturing that integrity. Taking ownership and accepting, God, the shame and the guilt of like who you once were and how you once showed up. And that was pervasive, by the way. We're talking about, you know, making some decisions in business. I didn't show up as a good husband or as a good father either when I first had children or when I first got married, right? And that was all rooted in the direction I was going, in this hard men make money and drink scotch at night and like this is what men do, right? And I think that my life has slowly just been just unraveling that. And I personally feel called to not just help people connect with their bodies and help them learn how to move their bodies and help them learn how to appreciate their bodies. But I also feel called to just do my absolute best to be an expression of masculinity that makes people feel safe, that makes people feel like, well, we can do this other direction as well. It doesn't have to be who drives the best car, who's got the best body, you know, who's making the most money. You know, it should be who's showing up and serving the world the best, right? If we can change the scorecard from what's in my bank account or how do I look to what have I contributed to help other people connect with and learn to love and appreciate themselves, imagine the world we live in if that was the case.
Ooh, imagine. That's so good, Tyler. I love how both of our sort of stories and journeys to WeShape were, people can look at this and be like, it's a fitness app.
Yeah.
It's a podcast.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
It's been a wild ride.
It impacts our entire lives. How you show up as a husband, how I showed up as a wife, how we treat ourselves, how we engage with the people around us, our views on masculinity, marriage, family, like all of that.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel so blessed to have landed here and to experience it with you all and with the members and being on the cause and hearing the community talk about how impactful everything is to them and how much they've learned and how much better they treat themselves as a result of being a part of this community. So I'm very, very happy to be here and very grateful for the opportunity and thankful to you, to Katie, to the whole team. And I'm, happy to have shared some of my journey and to hear more of yours and actually learn stuff about you because I thought I knew all of these details and I did not. So
I love that.
So thank you for sharing that too.
It's my pleasure. And I would just love to say one more thing, which you said in the beginning, which is, if I've sat in the appreciation of what we've been able to offer the world. And I really sit in that appreciation.
So
I am not shy to say I love what I do. I'm grateful for it. I'm so happy that we're making such a big impact on people's lives because before, someone would lose 100 pounds with us and I'd be like, yeah, look. And then we would just use it as a way to get more people, right? To get more people. But now, we have these challenges and we fly the challenge winners out here. And I could just spend some time with the people that actually came in, because they saw a fitness challenge and left looking in the mirror and saying, you know what, I deserve to take care of myself. I don't have to hate my body. I want to show up for me for the first time in, decades. And they always end up just profusely thanking us. And that's great and I love it, but I'm just so happy for them. I'm so happy that they don't have to finish out their life stuck in this belief system that the only way to show up in this world is to hate yourself, right? And is to punish yourself through fitness, right?
And that has lasting impact because it's them. It's their children. It's their children's children.
Yeah.
It's the other people on the calls. It's the other people they interact with in the neighborhood, in the grocery store. So there's a ripple effect.
There's a ripple effect.
I love it.
And that's the way I see it. I see it as hey, we got these lights shining, right? And if you can shine that light as bright as you can, someone else is going to come up and they're going to take a little bit of that.
They're going to take a little
right?
bit.
And if you can help them shine it as bright as you can, maybe they even shine brighter than you. Great, fantastic. You don't have to be the guru or the guy, right? And at the end of the day, the more people that can do that, it has that ripple effect. And again, I got 2 little girls that I want to grow up in a world that doesn't shame them for how they look and doesn't get mad at them if they like themselves,
At that point.
right? And so I really hope that we can just continue to spread this message, continue to build a better version of WeShape in all of the ways, and continue to help people connect with themselves in a more meaningful way that makes them like themselves.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. Thanks for this conversation, Lisa.
Thank
it's been fun.
you. Very good. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening as well. Hope you all have an amazing day.
Bye-bye.